Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and I have a couple of news stories that I am going to do. Now, I know in the Black sector that everybody is talking about a woman. She was at a club in Houston, Texas. A guy asked her for a phone number, and what happened? She rejected him, and apparently she got hit in the face with a brick. Now, let me tell you something about protection. Let me give you my overview. Because in the background of that tape, she was talking about she wanted men to be men. And the men in the background said, what are we supposed to do? First of all, if she had a man, a good man, she would have been at the club to begin with. But number two, you have to look at her past, her attitude, what she was doing with her life. And when it comes to protection, we owe no random women any protection. We protect our wives, our significant others, our sisters, and our daughters, people in our circles. That's who we protect. You know, as a Black man, I've heard many times from BWs, I don't need a man. But the funny thing that comes up is when she gets in trouble, she calls the man. There's what we call the proxy. Her brothers, her simp friends, her uncles, the police. But looking at this video, some of you women should start to change your mind about, I don't need a man. We've heard that a lot of times, and a lot of us are tired of it. And because I heard that, I'm going to take you to something that nobody's reporting. And I'm going to talk about be careful who you date. Now, this story comes from Miami, Florida. Let me give you one clue. Men and women. Not only should you be careful who you date, you need to be careful where you meet people. Now, let me share my screen. Now, this one, Tommy Jean found out this clip. Yes, she found this clip for me. This comes from the Miami Herald. She invited a man for drinks, then she spiked him with roach spray. Now, what happened to this woman? We're going to find out. Now, again, a woman's offer to have a few drinks with a man landed him in a Florida hospital. Now, she's lucky that this man didn't die. Now, why was the man in the hospital? Because she had spiked the cocktails with Raid roach spray. Now, this happened right around 4:30 a.m. on August 18th at home in Leon Springs, which is in Florida, and investigators have yet to release a motive. Now, the victim and the 29-year-old suspect were known to each other before the incident. Now, he told deputies The woman came home from drinking at a bar and asked him to continue drinking with her at home. And this is according to what the sheriff's office said. He said he had 2 drinks and then he began to feel sick. That's what she told him. She added Raid to his last 2 drinks. Now, what happens if a man would have done that to a woman? That man would have been on his way to jail. Now, again, I'm going to repeat myself. She was lucky that this man didn't die. Now, the man was reduced to vomiting for about 30 minutes before he was able to call for help. Now, I'm going to go back to another story. Cardi B. She had bragged about robbing a couple of guys. And she did something, I'm not going to go into it, to a couple of guys in order to rob them. Nothing happened to her. But again, you think about a man, he would have gone to jail. And there sure would have been a motive. Now, let's go back to the topic. Now, the suspect basically fled home before deputies had arrived, but was arrested without incident after a canine tracked her hiding in the bushes outside a nearby home. Now, she has been charged with poisoning food or water, which is a first-degree felony. And of course, she's being held without bond. That's what the jail records show. Now, investigators did not provide an update on a woman's condition, on a victim's condition at the hospital. Again, investigators did not provide an update on a victim's condition at the hospital. But insecticides like Raid do contain poisons that can restrict breathing, induce seizures, cause vomiting, and result in victims going into a coma. And by the way, this city, De Leon, De Leon Springs is about 45 minutes north of Orlando. Now, thinking of this, women can be just as violent, and you have a number of them that are hateful. Don't like men. There's a lot of misandry going on out here. We all know it. And this is because of the system that really, in my humble opinion, hates men. But one thing you must understand is that men are the ones who have built this country. Men do a lot of work. You can disagree with me all you want, whether you are a simp, whether you're a feminist, or whoever. Any trolls who come to my panel tell me I'm not qualified to speak. I'm very qualified to speak. And I'm going to leave comments in my video to engage audience engagement. And of course, you got to look at the video to understand what's going on. And before I move on too, I have to address the men with this. What I'm tired of is men coming up here when they hear another man speak and that man doesn't agree with what they say, they call him feminine. We've used that word too much, or they've used the FAG word. First of all, when you do the name calling, you're the feminine one. You're the child, because you cannot refute what somebody else is saying. Now, of course, in every video, all the content, I don't take it seriously. Everybody has trolls. But if you want to engage and you don't agree with my content, okay, that's fine. What I'm here to do is put out news. That's why I call myself the 411 Talk Zone radio show channel, and I've been up here for 7 years. And I know how to research news. I use common sense. It's not about education. So if you're going to come on my channel, respect my channel. Or you don't have to listen. Because if I disagree with somebody, I'm not even going to comment. Now, again, I'm not here on YouTube to make money. I have a real job. I'm a civil engineer. I do infrastructure. But I also know what's going on out here because I'm in those streets. And back to the topic. You see, in this country, there's a double standard where women can harm men and nothing happens to them. But on the same token, if men do the same thing, there's consequences. What happened to equality? See, here's my position on equality. There's no such thing as equality. A number of women want to benefit from equality, but they don't want true equality because it entails responsibility. Now, again, let me share my screen, and there's another story. While everybody is talking about the Brick City woman, I got to talk about what a couple of women did to some of these men out here. Now, the first one, believe it or not, that was not a black man that got harmed. In fact, that was a white woman who harmed that man. So it just doesn't happen in the black community. It happens all over. Now, this one is another one that Tommy Jean found for me. And I went over this one a few times. Now, this happened just 6 days ago. A woman allegedly stabbed grandfather after he asked her to take a shower. Now, what happened to this woman? I don't know. Now, as I go on, does this make any sense? It absolutely doesn't make sense. But I'm telling you that women can be devious and they can be just as violent, if not more violent, than men, but nobody calls them on it. Maybe this video will show you that you can't take women for granted just because they're women. Now, a 22-year-old Louisiana woman has been arrested after allegedly stabbing her grandfather in the face over an argument because of hygiene habits. Now, Carrington Harris, a 22-year-old woman from Keithville, Louisiana, which is approximately 20 miles south of Shreveport, was arrested after a domestic dispute with her grandfather, which led to her stabbing him in the face when he asked her to take a shower. Now, that's according to a statement from the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, and that was released last week. Detectives said Harris and her grandparents began arguing after they asked her to shower. She began damaging property inside the house and then turned the power off from the outside, the statement read. Detectives say while the couple was trying to restrain Harris, she escaped and retrieved a knife from the kitchen, and she used it to stab her grandfather. Harris subsequently ran from the home and hid in the woods nearby before being found several hours later by authorities as she was hiding behind a nearby home. Harris was arrested and charged with 1 count of domestic battery abuse and 1 count of domestic battery abuse with a dangerous weapon. Now, what happens if a man had stabbed a woman? Is that not assault with a deadly weapon? And a number of you women are talking about you want to be equal. Well, that's not an equal outcome to a crime, because I guarantee if I was involved in a domestic dispute and it was the other way around, I would be hauled off to jail and the charges would begin to pile up. Now, let's move on. It is unclear what started the argument or if the suspect had a prior history with the police. Now, the 22-year-old suspect in the stabbing of her grandfather has since been booked into the Caddo Correctional Center And as of Thursday, no bond has been set in this case. Meanwhile, Harris's grandfather was stabbed in the face during the altercation, was immediately taken to the Willis Knighton South by Cattle Parish Fire District 6. Authorities have not given any update on his condition. Now, that being said, this is what she looks like. And let's take a look at the video. Fair use. Fair use. Now, this is about the Proud Boys as well. Now, let me exit this screen for a minute. As, as we talk about the Proud Boys on that January 6th attack. Now, again, that guy, for what he did for January 6th, I'm not going to play too much of that video because I want to keep my channel here. But when it comes to men, look what that guy got. He got 22 years for something that happened January 6th. Now, I don't know all the details of what happened January 6th because I wasn't there. But you have to take in effect of what's going on in this country. Was it 2020 that has caused a lot of people to go crazy out here? I don't know. But the bottom line, when you look at the three cases, and there are more cases out here, because there are a lot of cases that don't go unsolved. But let's go back to the protection. There is no rule, rhyme, or reason that I owe any woman protection unless she's living with me, she's my wife, daughter. Of course, I don't want to see any woman get hurt. But I know everybody's talking about this incident. And even if you don't have a man, you shouldn't be going out to the club and staying out late. Now, the club scene has changed. I mean, I remember going to clubs in Baltimore. Yes, things did take place, but not like they do now. But in this country, it seems to be getting worse that men are being hated, particularly heterosexual men. And even it doesn't surprise me about the women, but men, even here, men talk about other men. And it's black men talking about other black men because of the jealousy. See, the bottom line is this. If I see a brother, I'm going to go off topic a little bit, who is doing better than me at something, and I want to become good, I'm always going to deal with the individual who's doing better than me because they're doing something that I'm not. I'm not going to be jealous. I'm going to be right on the coattails to learn something. And as men, many of us, we're hating each other. And that's a problem. And in the end, particularly black men, as much as we struggle and have had racism in the past, slavery, I mean, we've been looked at as uneducated. We can't keep jobs. We're deadbeats. I don't care what political party you come from as a man. One thing that we need, particularly as a black man, one thing that we need to do as men is learn to listen to each other. Stop calling each other feminine. Stop shaming one another when we have a difference of an opinion. Because you never know. We can learn something from each other. Although I have my master's degrees, I can learn something from somebody in the street and they can learn something from me. But we have to put away our egos and listen to one another. Many of us don't. And we carry that rage and anger from everything else that's going around us, and we bring it home, we bring it into our neighborhoods because, I hear all this black on black crime. Well, white folk have white on white crime. Hispanics have Hispanic on Hispanic crime. And when it comes to those numbers, I don't really know what the numbers are because the reason why there's a lot of black on black crime because the media, and we know what's happening, the media makes that a story every night. But there's just as much crime with the other races. That's because blacks live amongst blacks, whites live amongst whites, Hispanics live amongst Hispanics. And one thing I tell individuals to do too, do not interpret statistics unless you know how to interpret statistics. If there's not a trend in statistics, don't always believe that statistic because a statistic provides a sample. And that's what we don't understand. It's a sample, and that sample can skew the numbers. Also, how old are the statistics? I mean, anybody can quote statistics, but you have to look at the trend. You need a history when it comes to statistics. You need to know the statistics. I mean, the best statistic to use is the census. But even that sample is too big. So going back to the stories that I've read, women can be just as violent. And that's not the first story that I've read. I've read 2-year-olds shooting their fathers, shooting their mothers, stabbing. And I've never heard of kids committing crimes with a deadly weapon. Now you have to ask, where are they learning this from? Well, my humble opinion is too many of us are out here on social media, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, or watching television. And some of us are emulating what we see on television. And when we don't have family, and I'm talking about families intact that are actually teaching the children to stay in their place, because you have a lot of disrespectful children. I mean, I know we talk about the 2-parent homes, but they can also be dysfunctional because some of the parents are in arrested development. Some of the parents just have the children, they let the children run all over the place so the parents can do whatever they want because the parents, they weren't mature enough to have children, but they had children. A lot of these children are dysfunctional. The media. The media has really put a strain on men and women in this country. Because if you look at a lot of the daytime television, who's daytime television marketed to? Women. Now, again, those 2 incidents that I read about, nobody's talking about. but they do happen. And this is why I encourage men, be careful who you date. And I will tell you one place not to meet a woman, and that's on the dating profiles today. Because a number of these individuals are socially awkward. And women, don't meet men either. Now, you're going to get lucky, but you have to know exactly what you're looking for and live in the real world. You have to be honest with yourself. Now, like I said, nobody's perfect. But in the end, as a man, going back to the incident, we call it the incident with the brick. You don't owe anybody any protection, particularly if this person says she doesn't need a man. Number two, she deals with women. She's for the LGBTQ. She's out there twerking. She doesn't have respect for a man. You don't protect that person. And any woman who says they don't need a man, you don't protect them. You let them vanish. And when she said in that video, what are we supposed to do? And she said, be a man. I'm not going to be a man for you because we don't owe you anything. And I know some men can't take rejection because there are some women who are very rude when it comes to rejecting the man. Some men just aren't strong enough to handle it. You know, the bottom line, don't go to clubs. It's the wrong place to meet somebody. Don't go to social media. And as a man, don't be desperate. You have a lot of desperate men out here. And they're telling bottom of the barrel women that they're everything. And that's basically gassing the bottom of the barrel women up, thinking that they have all these options. They don't. And I don't care if they go on the Kendra G show or not. These individuals are delusional. They're stuck in arrested development. But when it comes to the incidents that I just told you about tonight that happened in Louisiana and Miami, women can be just as violent. Now, I guarantee you, those women are going to get a slap on the wrist. I mean, if you think about what went down, particularly with the second news report, how in the world is a granddaughter getting in an argument with the grandfather? How in the world was she able to get a knife and stab the grandfather? Where was her mother? Where was her father? Because something tells me that her mother and father, they weren't good parents at all. And the grandfather was telling her something for her own good, but she chose not to listen. This is going to be another one out here who's going to go out and start something with a man and end up 6 feet under. And the first one, I tell you this, karma's going to hit her too. She might have gotten away with basically allowing this person to live. She may have not put enough road spray in his drink. But again, it's going to happen where she's going to get a taste of her own medicine. You see, one thing I see about some men, they're not going to put up with the garbage anymore. All this don't hit a woman. all this being quiet, letting her run over him. Now, my generation, Generation X, and baby boomers, we let that happen. But some of these younger millennials and Zoomers, they're not going to let that happen. Now, again, I don't wish violence on anybody, but there's a lot of violence out here against men, and nobody wants to talk about it because the society doesn't really care about men's issues, care about women's issues. This is why women suck up most of the welfare funds and the government funds. In fact, this is why they vote for Democrats, because of the government benefits. But again, this is not a video to take a slap at all women. This is a video to let you know that there are violent women out there. And just because they're a woman, they're not held any higher standard than me. The problem is you have the media, religion, education. They put men down as being predatory, and they allow women to get away with everything. You look at a lot of the teachers. A lot of men can't teach because they're looked at as being predators to children, but a lot of women are predators. Nobody wants to address that. And you can see what's happening to the education system. That's a system that is destroyed, have the wrong types of views. And I just want to say this about women. Women can't be men. I don't know why they think they can take on a man. And so they think they have all these layers of protection, but they don't. And in the end, they're going to get themselves hurt or maybe killed. Because as a man, men aren't going to take that BS. And I see a lot of it here on social media. A lot of the disrespect. Now, I'm not saying men aren't disrespecting women either. But it looks like the media, education, they portray men as bad. And even men have given up. That's another thing. Men have given up. I mean, I've never heard of the term male feminist. I mean, that's an oxymoron. At least women, when it comes to a man, they'll look out for each other. But men, we don't look out for each other. That's a problem. I mean, we'll fight each other. This is why I don't go on panels. And as a content creator, you don't have to like my content. You can tell me I'm not qualified to say what I need to say. I'm out here in the real world every day, and I see what's going on. I look at the news. I read articles, and I base everything off of common sense. But when it comes to these two articles, and there's more to come, because where I'm going to go with this channel, so you'll know, my belief is I'm going to take it in the way to where I'm going to do a little bit more news. I like news. I may go on some panels. I may do some panels, but it just depends on whose panel is worth going on. Uh, shout out to Little Big Nate. They do something with him, the Angry Snowman. But I really just haven't found too many people out there in the last few months worth watching. May check to Brother Gigi from Kansas City and shout out to him. I talked to him by phone earlier. May do something with him. But most of all, I'm just going to restrict my channel to doing pre-recorded videos. And it's going to be a lot of news. And then we're going to go into the 2024 political season. I'm going to do a lot of political information. I'm going to talk about the education system some more. And I'm going to talk about some more of the social topics. Because I'm getting older. I see a lot of changes that didn't even occur 5 and even 10 years ago. And I believe social media is part of the problem. Because what's happening is many people are getting on social media. They have mental issues. They're very frustrated and they're airing their anger out on social media. And that's very scary. Some people are borderline schizophrenic. And then you have the delusions I see. I'm also go back into doing some psychological topics as well. Because Arrested Development, and I see it on Kendra G's show, even she's got Arrested Development. Thinks she has all these options, she does it. But she gives you the illusion just because she makes a lot of money. How much money you make doesn't make you a good person. Doesn't make you a person that's got character and integrity. There are a lot of people who make money and they still go to jail. People like Bernie Madoff, have a lot of your government, your elites. And my next topic is, so I'm doing a lot of topics here, although I'm talking about protection, but I want to talk about something called hip hop. Yes, hip hop is music. Now, I grew up on hip hop, not this garbage today. And I can remember back in 1979 on the Spring record label, people think, well, Sugar Hill Gang was the first rap song out. No, the first rap song out that went commercial was King Tim by the Fatback Band. Now, why am I bringing up hip hop? And shout out to Angry Man on this, because what hip hop did, and there's many genres of hip hop. There's jazz. I've even heard some disco used for hip hop. I mean, you had people like Doug Lazy that had hip house. Queen Latifah did some hip house. You had hip hop actually told a real message, not like this stuff now, but hip hop was like the news from people who are living in the streets, but they're telling a story and they're putting it on wax. And yes, hip hop did make a lot of millionaires. And hip hop is still good music. If I had to go back, I would listen to some old LL Cool J and some Schoolie D and some Z3 MCs. And, you know, being from the Washington, D.C. area, had go-go. That was good music. Now, why am I saying this? Because, you know, as Black people, the reason why I brought hip hop, we do have a culture. We don't recognize it because we're busy fighting each other. And when it comes to Black Wall Street out there, there was more than just Tulsa, Oklahoma, Arizona, Greensboro, North Carolina, Wilmington, Rosewood, Florida. Or there was something in Texas, Omaha, Nebraska. There were quite a few places that were Black Wall Streets. One of the best things that we have as Black people is our food. We know how to season our food, especially if you know how to cook Southern cuisine. And what I'm telling Blacks is maybe we need to look at some of the positives instead of looking at all the negatives. Now, we don't have to agree with each other, but we have to stop being jealous of one another. And the reason why I say that is, if you look at it, we, particularly Black men, we are all we have. I mean, we didn't have it, particularly black men, we didn't have the education, but somehow we took skills like cooking and made money, skills like singing, dancing, rapping, made money. And then, yes, architecture. The oldest architecture firm that's black owned is McIsaac and McIsaac, which is out of Nashville, Tennessee. It's still around now. People don't know that. And one thing that we need to learn is our history. Yes, we know slavery took place, but there were other people here before we got here. In fact, a lot of your slaves, believe it or not, went to the Caribbean and they went to South America. And your Aztec Indians, they were dark skinned. And your Egyptians, they were also dark skinned. There was a lot of mixing going on here. Now I'm just giving you examples, but as black people, when I talk about hip hop music, it afforded some record labels. Jay-Z, Puff Daddy, Kanye West, billionaires. So when it comes to hip hop music, I don't put that down. Some of us can't even do it, just like some of us can't sing. Again, did a video about being pro-black a while back. There's nothing wrong with being pro-black, but the pro-blacks that I've seen are really simping. That's not being pro-black. You got to be proud of who you are. And no, I don't feel, no, I'm not going to use the word feel. I'm not inferior to any race because I don't have to be, because I know who I am. But as for protection, let me wind this video up. We don't owe anybody any protection except the people in our circle who are close to us. Now, for this person that got hit with a brick because she didn't give a man a phone number, well, the bottom line, she asked for it. And I'd say some women, they think that a man is never going to strike back. Somebody did. And in the end, she got what she deserved. Now, was that the right thing? No. The number of men are getting tired of being the whipping boys. But see, men, we've allowed that to happen. And I will say this, that we men need to get more involved in politics. And you don't need a degree to get into politics. And then we need to look at what's going on around us. These two incidents that involve women. What men need to do, we need to start complaining. And we need to not feel bad if we're being abused domestically or we're being molested. We need to complain about it. And if we're going to make changes, we got to stop crying about it and help make changes. Problem is, we have men that aren't on our side. They've given up. They feel defeated. They want to come at men who want to do something. And it does seem like with men, particularly heterosexual men, everybody else outnumbers men. Because in the West, it's like everybody hates men, including men. So in the end, when it comes to violence, women are just as violent as men. But here's the difference. It's a double standard. When violence is caused by a man, he goes to jail. When it's caused by a woman, she walks. Why? Because she's a woman. If you don't believe me, look at all of the people who back women, including some men. As a man, if you want to take some real action, I will say this. Look at what's going on around you and take action. And drop the jealousy. Because once we drop the jealousy for each other, particularly as Black men, learn to work with each other, then maybe things can change. But other than that, I know a number of men aren't going to do it. So what's going to happen? Things are going to stay the same. What's going to happen to us? Men are going to continue to be used as a scapegoat. Why? Because a number of men say it is what it is because they've given up. Again, when it comes to protection, we don't owe anybody any protection. So everybody that's talking about the video with the woman that got hit with a brick, look at the cases that I've just done. These two men are victims. Let's see what happens to these women. Do they have protection? No. So therefore, as a woman, want to encounter a man, think you can beat a man, and he comes back at you, does some damage to you, might be a lesson to learn here. Do not poke the bear. Eventually, the bear is going to have you for dinner. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 401 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, check out my other channel, the QCIS channel. On that channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. You can't find the 411 Talk Zone radio show or the QCIS channel on YouTube. You can check me out on Twitter. Now for the QCIS channel, I'll take it one step further. You can find that channel on Twitter, you can find that channel on my LinkedIn page because that's an educational channel. And in the end, be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. You all have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.